Hey Sumit, welcome to Tea Talks, and it's really amazing to have you here today.
Yeah, hi Sanjay, thank you for having me.
And I cannot tell you how eagerly I was looking forward to this conversation because I've been following your work, the movie that you made, and the amazing response that it got from all the film festivals. It got selected in 11 film festivals and you got 12 awards.
Yes, so fortunately enough, it's the film is doing really good all over India, as well as it got like 3 international selections as well. So
amazing.
Yeah.
And I still remember the time when I met you at NID campus in Gandhi.
Yes, I think that was the first time when we came across each other.
Yes. And I still remember the conversations we had and how we were so nervous about our selection process and everything back then.
I think we bonded more on the nervousness right before we actually went inside the interview for the interview.
Yes. That's really true because I still remember because my interview was already done. And you I think you had it after the studio test.
Yes, I had it after the studio test, and I was already sort of panicking because my studio test was like not that great. But I mean, I still cannot forget like the whole day, how it was, and you know how. I think the best part about the whole day was meeting you because NID didn't really work out after that. But fortunately, I think we both were in the top 15 in the same year. Yes. So, yeah,
that's
I
true.
think if I remember, my year was somewhere around 11 and yours was I think 14.
14,
I think
yes.
Just separated by 3 ranks.
Exactly. And I cannot imagine, I am so amazed, I'm so amazed that Sumit that I saw back then in 2016 and right now when I see you, it's like your film has done so well and has got so many awards and big names to mention. RamMohan Viewer's Choice Award, Anifest, which is conducted by Animation Society of India.
Yes.
And then Rajasthan International Film Festival.
Yes.
Pune Design Festival.
Yes. It's gone at many. Fortunately, I never expected it to actually, proliferate so much in the whole festival category. But I mean, it was essentially a semester project, a small semester project in the college. So never really thought that it'll go ahead so much.
I know, right? I mean, something that you were doing during the semester, and that goes on to win so many awards in stop motion animation film category.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really amazing. Like, I wish I had done some projects like that, which went on to win so many awards.
Yeah.
That's really great, man. So, when people ask you, what do you do? Because now I see that you do so many things. You play Sitar, okay, and you're really, really badass at that. And then you make those illustrations, you do visual identity, you are a visual designer at an IT industry.
Yeah.
And then you make these stop motion animation films.
So
how do you define yourself?
Okay, that's a tough question. But I think the way I would probably answer to that is tell you how I ended up in the IT sector. So, I mean, I finished my master's in visual design from Department of Design, IIT Hyderabad in 2019. That's the year I graduated as an MDes graduate from IIT Hyderabad. And prior to that, 2017 was the year when I got admission to it. And the course at IIT Hyderabad is specialized in visual design. So you get a master's degree specialized in visual design, and that's like a canopy term for a lot of specializations within visual design. So you have like graphic design, photography design, film and animation, and a certain part of UI which comes in the whole realm of UX design and everything. So we essentially did all these courses separated with respect to semesters in IIT. And like we first began with graphic design in semester 1, then we moved on to photography and sort of animation design in sem 2, and third semester was proper filmmaking, and the fourth semester was something like thesis, where we had a choice of choosing whichever specialization that you are interested across all these that you have explored for the first 3 semesters. You could go ahead and choose that as your master's thesis. So my inception of being a storyteller actually was never planned. I mean, it so happened that across my 3 semesters I had already worked on one animation film which was along with my classmates Nupur, Dikshit and Sahil at that time, and it was called Ankahi. It was the first stop motion animation film that we worked on, and that was using coal, like kajal on glass. So we drew frames frame by frame.
Was it related to Sphere?
Yes. So it was a film that deals with fears of a person. So
amazing. That is still. I mean, I think that was years ago, and I still remember a few frames.
I'm glad that you actually remember it, because that film was like it just got selected in one festival, and that was IDS FFK, that is International Documentary and Short Film Festival of Kerala. So in fact, that was, I think, the first time when we sort of got this whole momentum to take storytelling seriously, because something that we also did as a semester 2 project got picked up in a festival. So it was a very short film, around I think hardly 1 minute or something.
Very short film.
Yeah, and that was my first attempt in a group, and that was in my semester 2 when we were introduced, and we were coached by this amazing person whose name is Vaibhav Kumarish. He was the mentor who gave us like the basics of animation and everything, and of course my Professor Delvin Remedios at IIT Hyderabad, he was the one who called Vaibhav Kumarish sir to our institute as a guest lecturer, and we had a very short 4-day module on animation, in which Vaibhav sir told us how to do basics of animation and everything. And so basically the foundation for animation was set in our semester 2, and in semester 3 we had this course called filmmaking, and we were free to choose whichever medium that we want to. So essentially live action, animation, experimental, mixed media, or whatever. So you can choose whatever you want. So I chose animation because we already had one semester of experience in animation, and Ankahi had already done really good at festivals, and that was sort of a push saying that I should do something more in the I should do more in animation. So essentially when I entered IIT Hyderabad, it was a course of visual design for me, and also I don't have any design background, like we both know. I come from an engineering background, and
same as me.
yes. So when when we enter into design, we don't really have those preconceived notions कि graphic design ही करना है, and something. And visual design itself being a very big umbrella term. I was fortunate enough to get a fluid course, like the course that IIT Hyderabad offers. It's pretty fluid, so you get to work on different topics, no restrictions, nothing. So eventually it so happened that over a period of time I explored storytelling subconsciously. Actually, it was never a conscious decision. So it so happened that all the projects that I ended up taking had a sense of narrative to it, like narrative building. And towards the end, when I reached in my 4th semester, my professor himself told me that Sumit, you've already worked on 2-3 narratives right now, why don't you think of taking animation as your thesis? So eventually my thesis was an animation film itself, but my thesis film was different than Ek Cup Chaha. Ek Cup Chaha was the film that got selected everywhere in the festival.
Yeah.
And but my thesis film was different, and unfortunately due to time constraints I couldn't really finish that film.
Okay.
So but yeah, Ek Cup Chaha was something that was, I think the peak of my storytelling.
Yeah, and I mean, I still remember that you had to stay back in the holidays also to work on that film.
Yes. Actually, I think that's a pretty common thing in most of the filmmaking or animation courses. Like, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult to actually conceptualize and get to the end product within that stipulated time period of a semester, or maybe a year. So, and it's in fact a very general thing across all the animation courses that it's bound to get extended. In fact, there are people who take like multiple years to finish their thesis films. So wow. And then they come back and then they take their convocation saying that yes, now I've finished my film and now I can show it and take my convocation. So,
that is interesting. I did not know this.
Yeah. It's pretty common. Like in the essentially, actually, filmmaking itself is so. In fact, I would say when you watch a film, you don't really understand how much effort goes in actually making it so seamless. That's where it's. I think that's the success of a film. Like when the audience is watching it and they don't come across any scenes, and it's so flawless that. That marks like the finesse and the success of a particular film, and of course like the story.
So how long exactly is the film? Ek Cup Chaha?
Yeah, so Ek Cup Chaha is 2 minutes 23 seconds to be exact, and
okay.
It's a very short film, and it has roughly around say. I think 2800 to 3000 frames that have been, but like this count is inclusive of all the frames that I edited and chopped off from the film. So there were like multiple trials, failure attempts, story change, most of the things, and there was like a lot of rework that happened. So essentially roughly around 3000 frames were like illustrated for this.
Wow.
And by illustrated I mean that the film is the medium for the film is like particle animation, like sand animation, but Ek Cup Chaha, Ek Cup Chaha is like a Marathi title, which means 1 cup of tea. Mm-hmm. And the film is about tea, and it's essentially made with tea powder. So the particle animation is made using actual tea powder on glass, backlit glass, and that's how the film is made.
So how did you come up with the idea of Ek Cup Chaha?
So like I said, this was a semester project, and by semester project I mean that we were expected to make a short film.
Yes.
Short film could be of any medium, so I chose animation. Also, the reason why I chose animation was because animation sort of gives you like a complete flexibility of morphing real life into imaginary life, and you can do all sorts of everything that is not possible in the real live action sort of a treatment.
I understand what you're saying.
And animation in itself has its own beauty, and one of my professors used to always say that if you're choosing animation as a medium for storytelling, you should and you must have a valid reason why animation, because one story can be very well shown in live action, in VFX, SFX, all those special effects format, hand-drawn animation, and within animation also there are like multiple kinds of animation. So every treatment that you choose for a film should have like a valid rationale behind that, why you are going ahead with even within animation, if you're using claymation or you're using puppet animation, hand-drawn 2D, every treatment itself has its own own effect and own story to tell. So it's essential that you use the right form of treatment for the kind of story that you're going to tell. So Ek Cup Chaha was more like it's a very personal story of mine, and essentially it deals with tea. So that was like my driving force towards taking tea powder as something. So I was not really intending to use tea powder to make the movie initially, but initially in the initial explorations I imagined it to be something like watercolor treatment on like a 2D thing. But like the design process demands, like you always iterate till you actually find a suitable sort of treatment, and that's when suddenly I thought that why not, like it's a film about tea, then why can't I use tea powder itself, and tea powder can be used as sand animation.
And it just happens in that moment that you decide and then you just follow it.
Yes, I think you get that click saying that okay, now I've done my set of ideations, and this is it that I want to take ahead.
Yes.
And but also like having said that, it's not always that what you pick up from ideation is going to work always. So maybe you pick up something, you try, it doesn't work out, you may have to go back in the ideation phase.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, so that feedback is always there. So but luckily for me it just worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say luckily, but I would also know that you are somebody who would put in a lot of effort in whatever you're doing. So that is something I really know. So I wouldn't say luckily, I would say there was a lot of hard work behind that luck.
Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah. So Sumit, as a visual designer working in the IT industry, so what does a visual designer do in the IT industry? Because this is something very contrasting that I'm talking about right now. Like Sumit, the storyteller who is animating and doing all those things, and now you're in the IT industry. So what is your role in the IT industry?
Yes, so I sort of have answered the same question in my job interview as well. the same interview that got me the job in the IT industry. So I mean, of course, like after masters, I was more inclined towards something that is visual in dominance, and over my masters, I had built a portfolio of a filmmaker, of a storyteller. And in fact, when my company approached for campus interviews, I didn't really have any IT project to show. I in fact showed my visual explorations to them, and I was asked the same question that in IT you will be working with softwares, like what will how will the animation that you are doing here, or how will the storytelling that you are doing here going to help you in that. So I think if I remember right, I had said that storytelling is sort of a universal thing, like essentially it's context building, it's building of characters, building of personas, it's building of a narrative chronology of events, and all these fundamentals can be they're sort of they're very modular in nature. I mean, they can be implemented in all domains. Like you can have storytelling via software design too. I mean, if I'm right, storytelling is in fact a very fundamental aspect of any product design as well. Any product that you design has to narrate a story. It has to build and set itself in a context. It has its own persona. It has its own character.
Absolutely.
So all these, there are a lot of parallels that you can draw and map in the software design, in the user experience and user interface design realm. So definitely, even when somebody is using before I jump onto that, I think what I would want to tell is what exactly I do in the industry, software industry. So I design apps in the most crude and simplest language. I design apps, and by design I mean that there are two aspects of app designing or software designing. One is the user experience design and one is the user interface design. So user experience deals with more about the fundamental way of functioning of the app. What is the task flow? How is the user expected to perform certain tasks? What is the functionality of the app, and what are the kind of features that the app should have, and all the brainstorming that goes in. Basically you can call it the brain of the app. And UI design is something that is more with respect to the front, the interaction front which the user has with the app. So right now it is most of the places it's the screen. So what the user looks at the software and interacts with the software, whatever he sees, he hears, or whatever is his sensory perception of the app, that comes in the UI design format. So in more simpler terms, UI design roughly is what you see, and user experience design is what you feel while you are using the app. So what I do is sort of mix and match of both, but more towards the visual aspect of it, which is the UI design. So right now what I do in the industry is I design UI elements for various apps. And by UI elements, in the most simplest language, I would say that I design the screens, how the screens should look for a particular app, what should be the spacing, what should be the colors, what should be the typography, what should be the layouts and information visualization, and small interactions with respect to animations of buttons or everything. So all these things are come under the user interface design. And of course there's a lot of user experience design knowledge that you must acquire before you jump to designing any of the UI. Like a UI which is only a UI will never work. It has to be coupled along with the knowledge of UX, then only the system works functionally correct.
So that's really amazing to know that you treat visual design as a part of storytelling.
Yes, I mean, I think design process is universal. That's why all the we have different, in the sense, there are different disciplines within design. So design is something that is that's everywhere, and design process is everywhere. So you have the same process. You have the whole process of brainstorming, ideation, prototyping, testing, all the whole thing. The structurally it is same everywhere. Maybe you will have some feedback loops here and there which are additional, and some sort of deviations in this, and more or less it's tweaking of the same process. But essentially design process happens in filmmaking, it happens in graphic design, it happens in UX design, it happens in UI design, everywhere. So if you are a designer, you are a designer. What I would say is, maybe you could have a dominant side in the design, but essentially the fundamentals remain the same across.
Exactly. This is so important to understand, because a lot of people or students, I must say, that so confused even before going to a design school. So somebody had asked me recently that if I pick up industrial design as my specialization for masters, so do I have to really stick to industrial design, and what if I'm interested in visual design later on, So this is what exactly I was trying to explain to that person, that once you get into design, the design process is essentially same, and you can always jump into another field and then from another field. So it's totally up to you, and it's really the flexibility of this profession is something that I really, really love about this.
Yeah. I mean, you can simply use a metaphor for an instance. Speaking. Design, if you equate design to speaking, the various disciplines are different languages. So you speak, but when you learn to design, you learn to speak. But when you learn to do product design, when you learn to do graphic design, when you learn to do filmmaking, what you're essentially learning are 3-4 different languages. So
that is beautifully put into words, man. That is beautifully put into words. I like how you equated it. Amazing.
Yeah. So that's in fact one very important thing that a designer is expected to generally do is also to understand these subtle metaphors in life, like using metaphors to convey designs which convey metaphors are most relatable. Like you have simple day-to-day things, which is also why I feel that a lot of people generally ask me, how do you choose stories, like which stories to communicate? So I tell them this, that a story need not be something like something which is lavish and elaborate always, like something like Game of Thrones or Harry Potter. Like those are of course like masterpieces, but I think the most relatable ones are not the stories as whole. Like even when you're watching Game of Thrones or Harry Potter for that matter, there would be like this one particular incident that's so relatable that you will be hooked to the story because of that. So so what essentially matters is you sort of you be aware of what is happening around you, because there is I think stories keep happening everywhere. It's like when it's essentially finding the right flow in the chaos around you. There is so much happening around you, and you figure out like one proper link which connects everything, and that link becomes your narrative. Like that link becomes your crux of the whole story. And then of course there are whatever you do afterwards is just translating your thought process to the audience.
Yeah, that's true. So about storytelling, we have been discussing a lot about it, but I want to ask, what is the most challenging thing about storytelling?
I think the most challenging thing that I think about storytelling is actually portraying what you're thinking. I mean, it's so essentially it's one of the most difficult things is to actually reach that level of fidelity between what you are thinking in your head and what you want the viewer to see on screen. Or so it's very it can become very complex. I mean, even a simple, in fact I personally feel that the simplest kind of stories are the most complex to achieve. I mean, simplest stories are like the toughest. I mean, because the fact that they are so simple, how do you actually attain that without adulterating it? So that's something is very difficult, like to get to the reality and to show things how they are. So that's something that's really challenging. And the more real a depiction looks, the more relatable it is to the audience. So that's another challenge. Apart from that, of course, like other things like setting the context right, establishing the characters well, and there's one more very important thing about redundancy in storytelling. That is, you don't really have to verbally tell everything that you are thinking through a narrative. Like by that, what I mean is the story can have certain things like you have a frame, right? You essentially in a story, when you imagine a story, you have the frame. So frame becomes your viewport, and that also becomes your tool to explain all the things that you say. Suppose your narrative has like say 4 sentences, for example. I feel out of that you should show 1 sentence verbally, and rest 3 of them should be incorporated in the frame in such a way that they don't need explicitly to be told. So that's something that sort of redundancy is pretty difficult to identify. Like what is that bare minimum that you need to show in order to communicate faithfully, and what is it that can be shown visually and can be eliminated from the whole narration of the story.
Wow, this is something really interesting. And now that I'm thinking about it, now I'm trying to recollect all the simple movies that I've watched till date. And now I'm thinking, okay, what amount of hard work would have gone behind, simplifying this whole thing? And like you said,
yes. In fact, it's
putting one thing verbally and conveying the rest of it visually.
Yeah. In fact, this was one of the this was in fact one of the most difficult things to achieve in the earlier era when films were just they were developing. During that time, how are you going to show a lot of things together at once in the same frame or in the same sequence? So there came this thing called as montage. Montage was a kind of it was sort of a way of editing in which all these complex emotions for which visuals were not very easy to make. Something like, how would you show tension apart from how would you show some feelings that are very difficult to show visually. So what people ended up doing was they ended up showing short clips placed one after another, and those clips are of all these visuals which essentially communicate this. So maybe for an instance, to explain it in a better manner, suppose a scene is going on in which there is a protagonist and he is feeling like a rush of emotion, something like he's angry, he's surprised, or all those things. So angry would be replaced with a short clip of a volcano erupting, or if he's confused, if he's confused, it would be replaced with a short clip of ants moving randomly. So all these essentially because there was also a time when sound design was not there, films were mute, so how would you right now, how are feelings and emotions communicated? It's partly by sound, partly by vision, and partly by dialogues. So all these three components come together for an emotion to be communicated to the audience. So throughout the whole process of evolution of filmmaking, people came up with these multiple ways in which you can give that experience to the user. Having said this, this again sort of reiterates to what I said before. Filmmaking is also in a way user experience design, because you want the audience to experience the whole film as a whole, the whole narrative as a whole. And this is where the universality of design comes in. So you can't say that, if one questions you saying that if I'm a UX designer, can I become a film designer or something like that? This itself is a very good example wherein the design process is universal. What it does, it empowers you to actually creatively structure, organize things. And one of the definitions of design in fact is getting order in chaos, bringing order in chaos. So design essentially equips you for that.
That's really nicely put. I like how you put everything that you have to say into words and explain it simply in very simple terms. I think you have got into the way you talk to people also.
I think what I do is just communicate, and sometimes this has been a problem for me because my mouth just starts talking the thoughts that come in my head, so it becomes problematic too at times, but then that's okay.
But it's really I think because the way you've explained it, and I'm sure people who are listening to this podcast would be able to understand much more clearly, and this would clear all the confusions that they might have regarding different fields of design, etc., etc. So that's really nice of you to put it so simply. And I would like to take this moment to look back and look at the journey that you've actually you've had, like an electrical engineer becoming a storyteller. So how did the electrical engineer now decide to become a storyteller? Now I know that it is something that happens subconsciously, but that switch from engineering to completely creative things. So this is like a really big switch, and I see this big happening so often in India, because even I was an engineer.
Now I think you will relate it most.
Yeah, because like I've been through that, and like I want to know your side of the story. Like, how did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think we need to address the white elephant in the room, because everybody knows, like, it's what is the current scenario of engineers with respect to India.
Yeah.
So I would say that like a majority of the chunk are engineering students because they are supposed to be, not by their choice.
That is true.
In fact, I would say all those who are by choice are really doing well in whatever they are doing. So, but the problem happens when you don't really want to do engineering and you end up into engineering. For several reasons. Reasons are multiple. Everybody can have their own reason. So, of course, like I graduated as an engineer, and in fact, for my thing, it was never like that. I never liked engineering or anything. I was always good at understanding concepts, but never good at applying them. So, so that's where I think the whole bottleneck started. So. Like I graduated as an engineer in 2015 from Mumbai University, and immediately after graduation, I had a campus placement and I started working in the manufacturing industry. I joined one of the manufacturing industry companies, and that was absolutely not a well thought decision, definitely. But I think back then I just went along with the flow, because I was not really aware of what I'm doing, and I was like, there was so much peer pressure. Everybody was going for masters abroad, this, that. So I decided that let's just go with the flow and see how it goes. And only to realize that it went down the drain within 4-5 months. So yeah, to be very honest, I had like a horrible experience in my first job itself. So by horrible, I mean I was not suitable for the job at all. Like the job that I took, I think a major part of it was my mistake, because I didn't really do that sort of a homework before accepting a job profile. And like every job profile has its own certain expectations. So I didn't really do that homework, and that's where I think I went wrong. And I accepted the job. But fortunately enough, that place was the first time I actually, the company where I worked, that place was the first time I came across designers, like professional designers. I mean, before that, I had no clue that, there was an industry like design. So the first time I was actually introduced to product designers and communication designers was when I started working with the company, the manufacturing industry company. Wow. And that's when, I started working. So basically I was in the marketing department of. So yeah, that was also another thing, that I graduated as an engineer and my first job was not into even engineering. It was actually marketing. So I entered marketing, and it was sort of a techno-commercial profile wherein, I was basically working in the new product innovation team, and like the name suggests, it's a new product innovation team. So definitely there were industrial designers, there were communication designers, marketing. So it was like a confluence of people of different sort of organizational structures. Mm-hmm. So that's where I first interacted with industrial designers, and over a period of time when I started working with them, I was like, hey, I like what they're doing. Like, I sort of, I remember once I went to my boss and I was like, can I work with them? And my boss was like, Sumit, you're not qualified to work with them. So that was the blatant reply that my boss gave, and I was like, ouch, that hurt.
Yeah, that was like in the face.
Yeah, that was pretty like in the face sort of a thing. But also like over the period of time when I started understanding the fact that in our group meetings, whenever we were discussing a particular product, I would have more number of inputs from their side. Like, when I used to address my inputs in the group meetings, I would talk more about the design, more about the functionalities and all those things, which my boss thought that it's not my work. It's my work is to give the marketing aspect of it. So later on I realized that, oh wait, I do have certain sort of inclination towards this particular field. Let me just go and interact more with these designers and understand what is it like they do and everything. And that's when like few of the designers from the company, they sort of mentored me towards design. You can say not exactly mentored me, but they gave me a thorough understanding of what the industry is. In fact, they were the ones who told me about NID. Before that, I was not even aware of what NID is. To be very honest, I come from a family of doctors. So a lot, like most of my extended family and family members are doctors. So and I being an engineer, there was never an exposure of design as such. And this was like the first time when I came and I figured out that there is something called as design, which is sort of something similar to art but not exactly art. So I didn't really have that clarity about what design is back then. I sort of in the initial days also misunderstood it to be like applied arts. So that's where though design has origins in applied arts, but that is still like that cannot be detached. But yeah, like the commercial aspect of it, I was not really sure how the whole design industry works and everything. So that's when I think over a period of time I understood that no, boss, this is what is my calling. So I have to do this. So I took up like that was a difficult thing for me to leave my well-paying job and just start preparing for something which is like absolutely a different domain. So
I can understand the conflict in mind that is going on when you're actually trying to make that decision, because you happen to discover all these things after you join somewhere. What happened with me was I could I somehow managed to figure out things even before I joined the job.
So you were at a better position. You didn't have to fall so low that
sort of, because I had done a couple of internships in Chennai with Nissan and Ashok Leyland, and then in Pune with Volkswagen. And that's when I got to know, okay, this is completely technical, man. Like and even at Volkswagen, after my project was done, my mentor, he even offered me position as an apprentice after I would finish my bachelor's. He said, you can come here and join as my apprentice, and I can make it a full-time job later on. So it was a complete job offer for me at Volkswagen.
I bet the brand itself would have been so tempting at that point. Hey, I'll be working for Volkswagen. That's big.
And you know what? My project was so appreciated by all the. So I worked in the quality assurance department, and they all liked it so much that they gave me an appreciation letter as well. So when I got back to college and I said, okay, I have this project, I have this appreciation letter from them, but is it really what I want to do? Like I don't want to work with engines and stuff. I don't want to design the engines. I would like to design the cars.
Yes.
Or do the creative part of it. So
yes.
That was already there in the back of my mind. And when this job offer came, after I graduated, this was another job offer in Bangalore, and and I never told my dad about the Volkswagen offer till date. So I never told my dad, and
glad you didn't. I'm very sure there would have been some pressure for you to join.
Yeah. And then once I got that offer from Bangalore, and I was like, okay, I am not that brave to, go and take that job and prepare for these design exams side by side.
Yeah.
Because once you get into it, you get into it. You were somehow strong enough to make that decision to break through, and you discovered a lot of things at work that pushed you towards your decision. And
because I think a major factor towards that was because I would never invest time in working at work. I mean, primarily because I was not interested in doing whatever I was doing there. So I was always thinking of ways how to escape this whatever I'm doing. So I would go and sit and talk with the designers and all those things. But having said that, of course, like the first step towards it was understanding how these exams are conducted, and my god, those exams, the way they are conducted itself is like a war zone. I know. For 6 months at a stretch, you are all like in this tedious tension, like screening this, that, and then studio test, interview, and all those things within. And of course, like for us, like for at least I have like repeated once again. So for me, it was like 2 times the same sort of pressure. So it was pretty hectic, but I think it overall towards the end, when you get that designer degree and you just feel like all this was worth it, like whatever. And one thing that I really like about being a designer is that it's you once a designer, you are a designer for 24/7. Like it's not a profession, it's actually a mentality.
Exactly.
Like if you it's not an apron that you wear at a workplace and remove it and then come out as a different individual. It's more being a designer is more like a way of life, because it when you learn the design process, it actually sort of affects you in your day-to-day life as a person as well. It affects you the way you think, it affects the way you make decisions.
Definitely.
And it also affects everybody who is around you, because when you start putting in that extra edge towards doing things, every other person around you starts noticing that too. And that's where I think you start creating that influence, and that's where design starts creating the influence.
That is so true, and I am glad that you brought this up, because I find myself in situations where I'm trying to find a solution to the problem, whereas it is difficult for other people from different professions to react in such a way, because we are so used to it that we always try to look for a solution to the problem.
Yeah. I think even the first step as designers is, and in fact I'm very sure all designers do this, is that we first question the problem itself.
Exactly.
And this is something that I've not observed in most of the other people that I work with. So the whole point of actually questioning the problem itself is very important, and that's where the whole process of unlearning and learning comes in. Like you have to do a major deal of unlearning before you actually learn design.
Exactly.
You have to break through all the stereotypical mindsets, all the all the conventional modeling that you have done in your mind. Design expects you to actually break through all of them and understand a new environment from its holistic perspective, rather than something that is very frameworks ridden. So that aspect, yes, of course, it's something that you will get only when you do like a thorough master's course in design. Because
that's really true.
I mean, I think that is something that the master's course actually trains you to do.
Exactly.
It's not really, I mean, a lot of people ask me like, why do you need to do a formal master's degree in design when I know that you're a creative guy, you can make good illustrations for me. Why do you need a professional degree like that? I think my answer to that is because when you get a actual master's degree in design, you sort of you don't remain at a level wherein you communicate only your ideas. What you do through masters is you actually gain a holistic perspective of looking at those ideas and tailoring them to the requirement. What is and of course, like a holistic, a very professional way of looking at creativity.
Makes sense.
So and also a master's course will actually make you understand that design is never free, and that's something that I think comes only when you get that intensity and seriousness of design which a master's degree gives you.
Yes, absolutely. I cannot agree more to that, because I went on to get a master's degree and I know the value of it.
Yes, and a lot of people, like, it's a common doubt, right? I mean, you are creative. Why do you need? Why do you want to put a paper to your creativity? That's something that a lot of people ask me. Like, why do you need a piece of paper to prove that you are a designer? My answer to that is that piece of paper is not just a piece of paper. What it does is it actually makes your opinions and your thought process. It gives that validation to your thought process that you're not just thinking artistically, but you are thinking in a designerly manner. And there's a universe of difference between the artist's way of doing things and a designer's way of doing things, and both have their own set of audiences.
Yes, true. That's very true. So, we talked about so many things. We talked about your engineering story and you being a storyteller, and then now as a visual designer at IT industry. So, and also about the animation film Ek Cup Chaha. So, I want to ask you if you have anything to suggest to the design aspirants these days. Anything that you would want to pass on to them?
I think you would be the best one to say that.
There are a lot of students who aspire to be animators and animation and film design, or storytellers or UI UX designers. So it would be really good if you can share something for them, which might even help them prepare themselves for the exams, or even how to think in a certain way that will help them in the longer run.
I mean, like in my case, like I was never an animator. Frankly, I never visualized myself as an animator. Animation is something that happened on the go. And but what I visualize myself is, like you rightly said, a storyteller. So I think my suggestion would be that whatever you do, right, like whatever field of design you choose, or the first thing right at the beginning is to understand what design is. And the reason why I say that is because all of us go through that. Like, before, the way you think of what design is after entering design is extremely different than what you actually enter with, like what you think before entering design.
Yes.
So and in fact, this was one of the suggestions given to me in one of the interviews as well. In my one of the NID interviews, of the couple of them. One of them, it was a suggestion given by the panelists there that like, Sumit, you try to understand what design is first, then you apply for design. So by understanding design, what I mean is one should really read books about design, and that's where you will by books I mean even if you pick up one book, like one simple basic book of design.
Any books that you would suggest?
You could be design of everyday things. That's like the Bible. So Don Norman. I mean, you can just pick that book and start. Even if you read like first 3-4 pages of it, you'll definitely get a knack of what design is, and that will clear out so many doubts. Because I think one question that is bound to come in across all the design college interviews is that what is design? They expect you to actually understand the difference at the entry level itself, because what happens is a lot of the crowd that comes for prepares for design colleges they have a preconceived notion that it's art, and there is like a fundamental difference between what is art and what is design.
Yeah, that's true.
And if that fundamental distinction is not clear at the beginning, it becomes extremely problematic for people to deal with rejections later, because then what they envisage, what they tell about design is essentially their conception about art. And I mean, not necessarily always, but something that is common. Like this is what I thought when I interacted with so many people who also come, like when you go, like I said, when you go in, you actually born yourself throughout in that 6-month process of getting into these design courses.
Yeah.
That time you also tend to meet so many other people. Like I met you, we met. There are like you tend to meet so many sailors who are sailing your boat.
Yeah,
so during that time you also come across, you talk to people, you try to understand their psyche, what their mentality was, how they decided to be design to enter design. That's when you also come across all these various opinions about design. But what matters is not these opinions. I mean, opinions will never help you to become or enter a design industry. What will help is actually reading the written word in the form of definitions of design and trying to understand what design exactly is. Because when you approach design colleges, they want you to know this distinction from before, and that's for sure. And secondly, what I think is really be passionate about what you want, because it might sound like damn cliche, but it's cliche because it's so true. I mean, it's so true that you have to be really passionate about what you're doing. And by passion I mean go to every millimeter, centimeter of it, and understand yourself before approaching the design industry, because design industry expects you to know your roots, know yourself, and be sorted on your thought process before entering the design industry. Because what is going to happen inside is they are going to actually break down all your structure and restructure you. So they need to know that whether you are a kind of person who is ready to let go of this rigidity that we grow up with this in this society. So that's, I think, very important. The how easily you are as a person who can be remodeled, and who is adaptable, who is more inclusive, and who is more holistic towards thinking. How well, and all said and done, we have, in this entire hour-long discussion, we have not used even once the golden word of design, that is empathy. So it's something that is that forms the entire basis of design industry. They want to know if you can empathize, and that's where I think it all boils down to. And if you are able to convince them that you are a person who is passionate enough and who understands the difference between art and design, and who knows what design is, and you are passionate towards it, these are your 3 stepping stone towards getting into any of the design colleges.
This is so good content, and this is I wish I had this kind of guidance, because now I'm really thinking about what you said, and thank you for mentioning all these points, because this sort of inspired me right now. When you mentioned that make sure that you go to the last inch, centimeter, or even millimeter. Right?
Yeah.
So now I'm questioning myself, am I really doing this right now? Because the passion that I had or even have right now. So I'm just trying to compare it with the level of enthusiasm I had when I was trying to get into design. And now that I am a designer and I have worked in the industry and have a studio of my own, but now I'm trying to put these things on the scales and see which one is weighing more. So
actually you know what, Sanjay, I mean, I feel that the fate of designers is not in the industry. I mean, it's in the designer's own hands, because
That's true,
because what happens is, eventually, even though, having said this, we have spoken so much about what you are doing, what I am doing, Essentially, my interests as of now are reflected to be, in an animation, in storytelling, and in filmmaking. But I'm working as a visual designer. But that doesn't actually make me less of a storyteller. No, I mean that's something. I think I would also like to focus more on that your profession is something that you choose for earning money. I mean, you that's also, I don't know why sometimes when people talk about passion, why don't they really talk about the monetary aspect of life as well? Because that's something that you should not take for granted. I mean, it's you boss, you do need money to live. I mean, exactly. that's the baseline. So
that's true. That's very true.
And we can't really go extremely utopian about thinking towards making your and also, like, to be very honest, if you ask me my personal opinion, I would think twice before making my actual passion as a profession. There are like two main reasons behind this. One is by profession I mean what happens to me when I equate my passion to profession is it always gets that monetary aspect towards it, and what that drives me to do is it always gives me an angle of viewing or thinking that whatever I do is definitely going to get weighed in terms of money somewhere. So and I may or may not be able to justify that amount, that whatever I'm going to quote for it. That's where that dilemma comes, that for me what is important, like how am I going to weigh on the counterpart. Of course, like there are certain passions which can be directly mapped towards the monetary aspect. This is also one thing that drives a lot of people crazy, that why I am doing something that I'm not passionate about. But you need to like take a step back, even to open a door you have to take a step back and open the door. So you need to take a step back and rethink that what exactly are you calling passion as, because I see two ideas mixing here. One is you need some stability in life, you need to go ahead, you need to make a career. That is one path towards it. Second is you need something to lift your soul up. That's your passion. So for me, it has always been a very proper distinction between the two, and I personally avoid mixing them up, because one, like I said before, like my passion is something that I really want to do something for my own self, like something that brings me to life, like that gives me a reason to live, that sort of a thing. And of course, like other things are there for the monetary aspect of it.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? Since I've been into this, the passion-driven income sources that I've generated for myself right now, I can very well agree with what you say, because once you get into the commercial aspect of it, sometimes you might not even be happy with the amount that you're getting for the work that you're doing. And then
true, and it sort of hurts more when you're passionate about it.
Exactly. and then other times you feel like, okay, I worked so hard on this, and then true that he has paid money, but then I have to give it to him.
True.
This is another thing. And then, so
in fact, the way I would put it is that if you really wish to make your passion your profession, right? You should be willing enough to deal with this particular thing. I think I am mentally weak enough for it to not I mean, I don't see myself dealing very well with this particular situation. So that's why I always choose to keep these two things separate. But of course, there are really legendary people who have done and who have achieved this level of resilience towards everything, that they for them everything is one, like that point of singularity they have already reached.
And the way I am trying to deal with it was very difficult in the beginning to understand these concepts and to coexist with them, but now what I do is I sort of develop this attitude of not getting attached to my work.
That's I think typically called the my baby syndrome. So
yes.
And that's a
true.
very common phenomenon in amongst all the designers. I mean, I think it's good that you brought it up, that that my baby syndrome is something that we have to deal with. It's like, no, you have to detach yourself from the work, and you have to, and that's when you actually that's when you also realize a lot of flaws in it, and that's when you are able to grow as a designer as well, that when you understand that it's not your baby, it's your work.
Yeah, exactly. And that is something that I really learned when during my design education. And
yes, it's important. It's
very important. And I was I was doing transportation design, so I used to make a lot of sketches. And by the end of the week, we used to have a review session with a professor, and he would come and straight away rubbish off the work that I had done, and say that, Sanjay, don't show me the shit again, because you need to work a lot. So,
and that hurts.
and that time I was wondering, okay, I really need to work hard, but I really felt bad that time, because I already put in a lot of effort, and that was my work. Because
correct,
till then I was not comfortable, considering it to be just work. That attachment was there, even if it was just a sketch, on an A4 sheet.
Correct.
Now I have, somehow developed that. I'll be thankful to all the professors at, all my university in Italy. They have helped me to develop this, and also my friends who were there. So there was this really amazing designer called Gregor Healy. He's from Malta. So this person actually explained it to me, dude, you need to consider, treat your work as your work. That's it. Your sketch as a sketch. Nothing else.
Yes.
This was an eye-opener for me, and really difficult to accept in the beginning, but like you said, it has to be done if you want to, create your passion into a profession, and then, commercialize it and do lots of, go on in that life.
Yeah, definitely. I think what the whole point of having those extremely torturous jury sessions during masters is exactly this, that just to see your design getting shot up like that in front of your own eyes, and when the jury actually sits and cuts through your design into pieces, small pieces, and throws it to the dogs. I think that's when you realize that okay, I mean, I need to forge myself to be strong enough to actually take this sort of criticism and actually assimilate it and get the positive points out of it and improve.
And I still remember the first jury ever.
Yeah, I think for non-designers, for non-creative background people, especially engineers like us, that first jury is like a big eye opener, saying that, boss, you need to really work hard.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I was talking about the first review ever. In my design career, the first review ever, they had asked me to, the project was about designing a sports car for 2030, I think. And I had drawn something, but when I put it up for review, and so reviews happen like this, you have all the sketches on the boards, and every student's work is reviewed. So all the students go from one place to another place. So everybody hears the review, and they're present there, because everybody learns from each other's reviews, right? So this professor was there, and he was saying, okay, this is a Japanese professor, his name is Masato Inao, and he said, Sanjay, I like the sketch, but which is the front and which is the rear of the car?
Ouch, that must have hurt.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, this is the front. And then he said, okay, I thought that was the rear.
Oh my god.
It sure took a lot of hard work, to come from there. But, once you know where you are, there's only going upwards, You hit rock bottom and then you just go up. So that's how design works. And thank you so much, Sumit, for taking time out and sharing all these things about your process, your storytelling, and your journey so far. And I really am grateful that you mentioned all these things for the aspiring designers as well. So before we sign off, I want to ask you one last question.
Yeah.
When can we expect a new story from you?
Okay. Well, I have been working on one right now. It's
Okay, this is getting interesting again.
but it's right in the, like I said, it's in the ideation phase right now. I'm also in discussion with a couple of, so this time Ek Cup Chaha was like a one man show wherein the whole film was made by me itself. So but this story that I'm working on right now is more of a collaborative effort. So right now I'm actually I'm talking with a lot of people right now and trying to see where it goes. Fingers crossed, let's see.
That's really good. I'll be looking forward to it. Is it going to be sand animation or what is it going to be?
I will not spill the bills.
Okay. I'm just trying hard to get something out of you right now.
Okay.
Alright. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for all the inputs that you've shared.
Thank you Sanjay. Thank you for giving me this platform. In fact, I feel special because this is probably the first interview sort of a thing that I am doing here in the form of a podcast. So I mean, I would be glad that whatever we spoke of, even if it gives like 1% guidance to all the design aspirants, it's something that's really amazing. And like I said, like anybody who is interested or to talk can always approach me. I'm there on Instagram. I'm there on Facebook. My name is Sumit Yempalle. You can ask Sanjay. He can guide you.
Yes, definitely.
So
and you can definitely find his work on Instagram. And
I think that's the most easily reachable platform these days. So and like anybody who is interested to even talk about design, like Sanjay and I, both of us are like extremely passionate about design.
Yes, definitely.
So that is something that I would love to do anytime.
Perfect. And if there is anything about storytelling that you would like to ask, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or Sumit Yempalle on Instagram. We'd be really happy to take your doubts, or if you want a particular topic, we would be really happy to do that.
Yes, definitely.